Ever get that, like, little twinge of regret after sharing something
Oh,
personal?
yeah, totally. Like, you just kind of wish you can take it back.
Exactly right. And it seems almost inevitable that someone you trust today might, down the road, become someone whose knowledge of those personal things, well, could become a point of tension.
Yeah, relationships shift. It's just life, right?
Absolutely. So, in this deep dive, we're going to unpack why being cautious about what you share is so crucial.
We'll be looking at how to really gauge who deserves your trust and some good strategies for navigating those, sometimes unpredictable waters of relationships.
And we're tapping into sources for this one that are very much rooted in like practical life advice and personal wisdom.
Good stuff. It's about those insights you gain from experience.
Exactly. So, first up, let's talk about this whole thing of changing relationships. It's a given, isn't it?
It is. I mean, people come into our lives, things evolve, and those bonds, sometimes they fray. It
Yeah.
leads to distance or even, in tougher cases, conflict.
Right. And what's so important to grasp here is the lasting impact of what we share, especially during those close times.
Yeah, once something's out there, it's out there.
I mean, you can't exactly hit unsend on a heart to heart
Hey,
conversation.
you can't. And, the sources we dug into have some pretty compelling examples of this.
Yeah, really eye opening. Like, think about celebrities, right? They live their lives under a microscope.
Constantly.
And we've seen so many instances where their private struggles or insecurities end up splashed across headlines, all because of someone they let into their inner circle.
It's a stark reminder that trust can be, well, broken. And often it's not some stranger doing the betraying, it's those closest to them.
It's a real vulnerability, even in those relationships that seem, rock
It
solid.
is. And these shifts in dynamic can really expose people with some pretty serious consequences.
And it's not just a celebrity thing, right? This whole idea plays out in everyday life, too.
Absolutely. The sources also talk about how business partnerships, which often start with like genuine friendship and shared ambition, can turn sour.
And suddenly you're in a legal battle, and all that knowledge you shared, finances, strategies, even past mistakes, it all becomes ammunition.
Yeah, it highlights how important it is to maintain certain boundaries, even when you're working with people you deeply trust.
Right. Because personal and professional lives, they can get messy when those interests don't align anymore.
They really can.
And then, of course, you have the more relatable scenarios, particularly in this digital age.
Oh, yeah, the age of oversharing.
People sharing personal stuff online, hoping for support, only to be met with judgment, or even worse, having that vulnerability used against them later on.
It's tough. The online world can make us feel more distant from the consequences of what we share.
It creates this like false sense of safety.
It does.
Yeah.
So the big takeaway here seems to be that trust, while crucial, it's also incredibly fragile.
And the things we share, they have this, lasting power.
They stick around, for better or for worse.
Okay, so let's flip this. What's the power in holding some things back, in being more private?
The key insight is that it's about self-protection. It's not being paranoid. It's about being discerning, choosing what you reveal and to whom.
It's like protecting your most valuable assets.
Exactly. And the sources actually break down some specific areas where being cautious is particularly smart.
Like starting with, goals and dreams.
Right. You might think, why wouldn't I share those exciting things?
You want people to be happy for you,
But the thing is, those early stage goals, they're fragile.
like a seedling.
Yeah. Sharing them too early can expose them to doubt, to criticism, even just negativity that can, chip away at your own belief.
Like kill it before it has a chance to grow.
One source put it this way: protect your nascent ideas from premature frost.
Oh, love that.
It's so true. And then there's, of course, the often tricky subject of finances.
Ah, yes. Money matters.
The sources advise caution here, whether you're, doing really well or struggling. It makes sense. I mean, sharing wealth, it can invite envy, right? Requests for help, even if they're not ill-intended.
And on the flip side, sharing about financial hardship can, I don't know, make people see you differently.
It can even make you vulnerable to exploitation.
Right. So keeping those details private helps keep those relationships focused on the genuine connection rather than money.
As one piece of advice put it, let your success speak for itself. Your bank balance is a private matter.
Wise words. Okay, what about sharing personal struggles?
That's a tricky one. We often share those things looking for support, for a deeper connection.
And it can be so helpful to talk things through.
It can be. But the key is to be really selective about who you share those vulnerabilities with.
Because if it's not the right person,
It can backfire. It can create opportunities for manipulation or for those weaknesses to be used against you later on.
one source warned that your vulnerabilities are precious and trust them wisely.
So true.
It's about finding that trusted confidant, not just broadcasting it to anyone who'll listen.
Exactly.
And finally, there's family and relationship issues. When things are tough at home, it's tempting to vent to friends, to get advice.
It is, but it's important to remember that those dynamics are often complex.
There's nuance, there's history.
Sharing too widely can lead to misinterpretations, to people taking sides without knowing the whole story.
And that can actually make things worse, add fuel to the fire.
It can. As one bit of advice said, not every storm in your home needs to be broadcast to the neighborhood.
So it's not about building walls, right? It's about being mindful of who you let into different parts of your life.
It's about recognizing that not everyone deserves access to every detail of your story.
It's a form of self-respect.
It is.
Okay, so how do we know who those trustworthy people are?
Right. How do we spot them? Well, the sources give some good pointers.
One that comes up again and again is respecting confidentiality.
Like, they don't have a habit of spilling other people's secrets, which sounds obvious.
But how do you really assess that?
It's about paying attention to their behavior over time. Are they always gossiping? Do they seem to enjoy sharing negative stuff about others?
If they're doing it to other people,
Chances are they'll do it to you too. One source said, a loose tongue with others will likely be loose with you.
that's a good one. Another big one is loyalty, especially when things get tough.
It's easy to be there for the good times, but who sticks around when things go south?
Those are the people who've really earned your trust.
Their actions speak volumes.
The sources also point out that genuinely trustworthy people tend to, avoid gossiping altogether.
It's that classic thing. If they gossip with you, they'll gossip about you.
Makes you think, right?
It does. And it shows a lack of respect for privacy. If they're trash-talking others behind their backs, they're probably not going to treat your information with much care either.
And lastly, there's this emphasis on people who offer support and just listen without expecting anything in return.
No hidden agenda.
Just genuine care.
They listen because they care, not because they're looking for something from you.
It's a good reminder that those truly deep, solid friendships, they're not as common as we might think.
They're precious.
And even those can change over time. Life happens.
It does. So yeah, this whole idea of keeping some things private, it's not about being guarded. It's about self-respect. It's about having a sense of control.
Like it gives you a buffer if those relationships do shift or if information falls into the wrong hands.
It's about safeguarding your inner world.
Okay, so we've talked about why discretion is important and how to spot those trustworthy people. Now what? What can our listener do with all this?
The first thing is to take some time for self-reflection. Honestly assess your current relationships. Who are you sharing with? And do they actually demonstrate those qualities we talked about?
It's like doing a trust audit.
Exactly. Once you've got a clearer picture of that, the sources really advocate for the practice of silence.
Which can be tough in our always-on, oversharing world.
It can, but it's powerful. Our actions often speak louder than words. Not every thought needs to be voiced. Holding back can prevent misunderstandings, judgments, and, yeah, the risk of having those words thrown back at you later.
One source recommended, cultivate the discipline of the unsaid.
Love that.
So what about our big dreams, our deepest struggles? The advice is to, hold those close until you're really sure about the support you're getting.
It's about building that foundation of trust first. Look for those consistent patterns of discretion, empathy, genuine care before you go all in.
And finally, there's a warning that feels particularly relevant today. Be wary of oversharing out of loneliness.
So important. Loneliness can make us do things, make us vulnerable.
We crave that connection.
And it can lead us to share things with people who might not have our best interests at heart. So, yeah, be careful who you turn to in those moments.
Prioritize those genuine connections.
Exactly.
So we're talking about the strength in silence, the freedom in privacy, the wisdom in knowing when to hold back.
It's a balancing act, finding that sweet spot between connection and self-protection.
Right. And ultimately, this deep dive is about encouraging you, our listener, to think about the information you're putting out there. Who are you sharing with and why?
Be intentional.
Because here's the thing. In a world where we're constantly told to share everything, to be transparent, to be authentic,
Right.
what's the real value in what we choose to keep private? What's the power in those unspoken things?
It's definitely something to think about.
It is. It's a lot to chew on, that's for sure.
Lots to ponder.
And that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.